Hey, welcome back. Today we're talking about the physical effects of trauma. So, if you have been through a traumatic situation or even complex trauma, which is a traumatic situation that seems to never end, then you may want to pay attention to some of these things we're going to talk about because physical impact is what happens when there is emotional and mental trauma. Physical impact is what happens when there is physical trauma. Okay, so let's look at some of the issues that you might have if you have been through trauma. This is physically. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and that book is explaining how your body keeps the score of how well you are. While you're healing from trauma, your body will let you know how well you're doing with your healing by how many issues it has. Okay? So the physical impact of trauma starts in the brain, of course, right? There is shrinkage of the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the corpus callosum, and the hippocampus where your memory is. All of those areas of your brain shrink. Okay, the amygdala, the upset emergency part of your brain, is enlarged. Okay, and the resolution to these problems is to establish safe, stable, nurturing relationships, have some type of regular physical touch, which releases the oxytocin, spend time in nature, and exercise. So the neural pathways are also affected by trauma in a physical way. What you have to do with your neural pathways that are all messed up is you have to rewire your brain. This is what I've done. I have rewired my brain from the old tapes to the new tapes, from the old thought patterns to the new thought patterns, from the old habits to the new habits. You have to actively rewire your brain, and the most efficient way to do that is with the scriptures. The scriptures are alive and active and supernatural. So you're not going to be having to input those scriptures at 51%. You can do it at any percent, and it's extremely effective. So the resolution for all of this in rewiring the brain, you can also do neurofeedback. You can do positive self-talk and meditation. All of those things are effective. Okay, what about hormones? How are hormones affected by trauma? When you're in trauma, you're going to have a prolonged high cortisol. That means your emergency button is on. That damages your cells all over your whole body. It damages the structures in your body that are set up, and it damages your hormone glands, like your thyroid. So the resolution for the hormones would be oxytocin. That would be nursing a baby or cuddling with your spouse, giving each other a back rub. Another physical impact of trauma is toxin elimination. Toxin elimination is slowed down when you have the effects of trauma. Your intestines and your kidneys are less able to eliminate toxins. You may have a slow gut. You may have your intestinal flora may be off balance, out of balance. And so the resolution for that is to take Epsom salt baths and get in the sauna. And that will help eliminate those toxins for you. Okay, what else is impacted by trauma? The nervous system. Your nervous system, if you've been through trauma, is going to be supercharged. It's going to be like the bionic man or the bionic woman. Your body will be struggling to find balance. It doesn't know what normal is. It doesn't know what balance is, so it struggles. It really struggles, and you'll be too far one way, then you'll be too far the other way, and you can't seem to find that happy medium. Some resolutions for this problem could be yoga, and physical and emotional regulation exercises are really good for that. The next thing that trauma affects in the human body in a physical way is the immune system. So once you've been through trauma, you're going to have a resistance to cortisol because your system has been flooded with it for so long. And that creates unchecked inflammation. And guess what inflammation leads to? Disease, right? So resolution is going to be meditation, change your diet to a clean diet, get plenty of rest, and spend time in nature. Another way that your body suffers as a result of trauma is your brain waves. Your brain waves are messed up. You have the dominant wrong brain waves in the wrong part of the brain. And that leads to, of course, anxiety, inability to concentrate, and it can lead to seizures. So that's really serious. Another problem that comes from trauma is that you are very vulnerable to addiction because the dopamine receptors are damaged. They're damaged or they can't receive. So the effect that this has on the person is that they have reduced motivation, reduced focus. It creates a lot of fatigue. They have low serotonin, and that can cause depression. So all of this is going on inside you if you have been through trauma. If it's a one-time trauma, it won't be so bad. If it's a trauma that happened and then you waited a while and then there was another one and you waited a few years and there was another one, that will be a little bit worse. If it's complex trauma where it's multiple things happening off and on or so consistently that you could say it's been without a break, then that will be the worst because that's kind of all of them combined. So the intensity of these symptoms can be related to the type of trauma, the repetition of the trauma, and whether it was complex trauma or not. So if it's like a dimmer switch, if you just had one trauma in your life, it may be down, the light may be a dim setting on the light switch, dimmer switch. And if you've had a trauma at 5 years old, a trauma at 10 years old, a trauma at 20 years old, you're going to pull the light switch up a little bit more. It's going to be more intense, these symptoms. And if you've had complex trauma for 20 years, plus individual traumas on top of that, it's going to be really intense. Okay, and our last one here is cellular change. So when you have experienced trauma, whatever it is, there's a physical impact to it. It affects your cells in your whole body. There is a cellular change, and the telomeres on the very ends of your DNA shorten. They shorten. The telomeres determine how long you live. Okay, so the telomeres on the DNA shorten, which brings about premature aging and cancer. Okay, so this is interesting, isn't it? So if you've been through trauma or you know someone who has, give them this information. It may help them to know what to do to heal and recover and to be able to recognize symptoms that may be related to the trauma. All right, I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time.